Today is Friday, June 10th, 2011. We're talking to Bob. How do you pronounce your last name?
In the United States, it's Teahan. In Ireland, it's pronounced Teahan.
So your
It's
family's Irish?
Teahan. And one way you emphasize the H and the other you ignore it.
I see. And who is from Ireland? Your father?
My grandparents from my father's side.
I see. And you were born where?
In Greenfield, Massachusetts.
And I don't know that much about Massachusetts, so where exactly would that
It's 40 miles north of Springfield and 98 miles west of Boston. It's in the northwest corner.
be? Would you mind telling us when you were born?
September 3rd, 1933.
So how long did you live in Massachusetts?
I was educated up through until I went into the military during the Korean War.
So basically you grew up in Massachusetts.
Yes.
I see. And did you have any brothers or sisters?
Yes, I have a brother, and my sister was subsequently passed away.
And you said, what kind of school did you go to? Was it public or private school?
Public school.
Mm-hmm. And then when you graduated from high school, did you do any, first of all, did you do any extracurricular activities while you were in high school?
Yes, I played football. Was one of the things. I was named All-Western Massachusetts
Wow.
high school football.
Uh-huh.
So a long time ago.
Well, okay, sure. Did you do any other sports?
Oh, I ran a little track and not too much organized. I played some pickup stuff, baseball, softball, a little basketball.
Did you work during the years you were in high school?
No, I did not. Well, in the summer I did, but not during the...
What kind of work did you do then this summer?
Well, they made sure that all the football players had nice outdoor jobs with the street department or with a construction company.
Something to keep you in shape.
Yes, to get us
Sound
in
like
shape,
it.
yes.
I see. What kind of work did your father do?
My father was partly in business for himself, and then the Depression came and he lost his business, and he subsequently got back into the real estate and appraisal work.
I see. Well, you said something about going into the Air Force.
Yes.
Why and when did you go into the Air Force?
I went in during the Korean War. The reason for is I wanted the draft was going on, and I wanted to control what branch of the service I went in. And my brother, who was a Marine and saw extensive action in the Pacific, told me to stay out of the rifle company.
So by going into the Air Force, he thought that would be a safe thing for
It
you?
would be safer than a rifle company.
All right. So where'd you have your training?
Sampson Air Force Base in Upper New York in the middle of the winter. Everyone got strep throat.
Oh, how old were you?
You had to have 100 and some odd degree temperature to get in the infirmary.
How old were you when you went in the Air Force? Did you go to
17, 18.
So you didn't go into college?
You were being drafted at the time, so it was, no, I didn't.
In lieu of going to college,
Yeah.
you went into the Air Force.
Yes.
I see. And what were you being specifically trained for while you were there?
Oh, I went into the electronics in those days was a radio.
Uh-huh.
And so into the electronics area, the radio repair and maintenance and so forth.
Did they distinguish between airborne and ground radio?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And which one were you in?
I trained in both, and I ended up in a ground support unit, and later I was in England.
Well, when did you complete training then? I don't
The
really
basic
know.
training?
Right, I don't know.
Basic training was, I think it was 9 or 12 weeks, and then I went to Scott Air Force Base for a year.
Here? Right here?
Yes, for schooling. Went through basic electronics and so forth. So I was stationed at Scott Air Force Base for just about a year.
Was this something that you wanted to do, the radio aspect?
This is where the government decided they were gonna put me.
Okay, all right, all right.
And today's, you get a choice.
Right, yes,
In those days, you didn't get a choice.
right. Well, when you were finished being trained, then what was your assignment?
I ended up going to Carswell Air Force Base,
Mexico?
in Fort Worth, Texas. And I was there, I don't know, 6 months. And I shipped out overseas.
Did you learn how to fly a plane?
Oh, no.
I guess I have this misguided idea that anybody who's in the Air Force is going to be a pilot.
No. Although I eventually went to ground electronics, when I first duty overseas, when I was to pre-flight an aircraft, get it ready for flight, which wasn't I was trained to do, but that's what I ended up having to go do. Yeah.
So after Texas, where did you go?
This was in England.
Oh.
Yeah, right. The Korean War was winding down at that time, and it just over, and the Cold War was the big thing. And unbeknownst to people at that time, we went to a base that had nukes on it, and we were going to. The Russians were the thing.
Right.
There. So we were going to be the first line for anything that Russia did.
I see. So what primarily then kind of work did you do then?
That was equipment maintenance and so forth, and electronics and so.
How long did you stay in the Air Force?
4 years active duty and 6 years inactive duty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you required, I think it was 10 years. So it was 8 or 10 years, I don't remember.
Why is that? Why were...
Because the government said so.
So this is in 1952, 53?
Yes, 52,
And
53,
so
54.
the state of communications technology at that point.
was antiquated. The first equipment we had overseas was World War II stuff until we could get replacement parts, and then we got brand new, had diodes in them. That was a big thing.
You're using HF, were you using AM or single sideband?
I don't remember what it was, to be truthful.
But it was the kind of communications that got better at night,
Yeah.
though, right?
Well,
For long haul.
yeah, for long haul. And some of the things we had mobile equipment in case we were attacked, to be able to get a 6x truck with the teletype equipment and power equipment, and be able to move around and set up a base and predicate it on a disaster.
Did you handle secure communications also? Crypto?
They could. I wasn't into the operations side of it. I was in.
But you could handle crypto traffic?
Yeah. They kept that pretty secret.
Yeah.
Let's put it was there.
Yeah.
Bob, where were you in England?
RAF Stargate in Lincolnshire, in the Midlands.
In the what?
In the Midlands.
Midlands, like the center of the country?
Yes, that's what they refer to as the center of the
Oh, okay.
the Midlands.
How'd you...
About 40 miles from Nottingham.
Oh.
I never did see Robin Hood. But that's where.
What'd you think about being in England? Did you like it, or was it not too much?
No, after a while, you're ready to go home. We were living in Quonset huts. It wasn't the best living conditions.
I see.
And if you went off base, the conditions were probably worse.
Well, it's.
Because Britain was pretty economically depressed.
Yeah, they weren't great. There were buildings, you went to town, and they still hadn't repaired some of the bomb damage from World War II.
Yeah. And the food supplies were
The food, the English forgot how to cook.
Yeah.
They didn't have the rations during, and they were never real fine cooks. They lost it. I'm
well,
sure
when
today
you were in England, let me ask you this: while you were in England, were you able to go to Ireland to maybe try to find any relatives, knowing that your grandfather was from Ireland?
At those times, we didn't have that kind of money, living on GI's salary, and I didn't have the time.
Okay.
You got 30 days a year.
Well, I was just thinking maybe since
And,
you were
yeah,
that close.
No, I didn't. I ended up one time landing over there. We came over to the United States, we landed. You couldn't make the big hop without refueling in Ireland before you came across as they referred to it, as the big pond.
Well, when you were
I had
discharged,
an interesting time coming out of Nottingham, or Birmingham, one of England. It was a snowstorm, and the aircraft had sat on the ground. It had iced up. They de-iced it, and we started down the runway. I remember it well. And he lifted up, and the nose gear came back down.
oh,
And we said, okay, I've been through this before. So the second time we always get up, and he lifted it up the second time, and it came back down. And this time the lights were going zing, zing, zing right past you. And we said, okay. The third time, he lifted up the third time, and it went pow, and the lights are going zing, zing. And I know at this point we're past the point of no return. So he was going to have to get it off the ground. And he picked it up the fourth time,
Ooh.
and honest to God, I just went, like I was hoping to help him. And we got off the ground and went zing, zing. There was no more runway.
oh, well, God, that's scary. Was that a military transport?
Yeah, it was a transport, yeah. And we landed in Ireland to refuel, and I thought, God, I've got to go through this again.
Oh, wow. Well, tell us, you say you spent how many years active duty?
4.
And then where did you go after that, or what did you do?
McDonald wanted me,
The McDonald
aircraft company.
from in St. Louis? What do you mean? Were you recruited or
Yeah,
sent a letter or what?
There was I had met my wife here when I was at Scott, and they said you can get a job here. And the vice president of human resources said we got a job for you.
Wow.
So
How old were you?
I don't know, 21, 22, something like that.
And you said you met your wife when you were being trained at Scott Air Force
Yes.
Base. Was she from St. Louis?
Yeah, she was from Glendale, Missouri.
And what is her name?
Her name was E-T-T-E, Etty.
Her last name was E-T-T-E.
Etty.
Eddie. And her first name?
Beatrice.
And what was she doing when you met?
The first time she was attending a USO dance at the
Oh.
YWCA, and she'd been recruited to go do that. So anyway, that was a long time ago.
I see. So you married here in St. Louis?
Yes, her father was a contractor, and I better tell this because it's a family joke. He built the Glendale Presbyterian Church, so we were married there, and the family joke is, you know any father that had to build a church to get rid of his daughter? If she sees this, she'll kill me.
Okay, well we won't show it to her. So
Well, you do
when you got married in St. Louis, where did you live?
We lived in Hampton Village.
Which is South St.
Yeah,
Louis.
and Bancroft Avenue, South St. Louis, yeah.
And you were working at McDonald's, which is in Hazelwood area.
So I was driving it all back and forth.
Did you have your own car?
Oh, yes.
And how long did you live in this Hampton area?
About 4 years, I guess it was, something like that.
And
Yeah.
did you have any children then?
When we moved to Bridgeton, our daughter was 3 years old.
So when
3 months old. excuse me.
uh-huh. Well, how did you come by finding Bridgeton?
We just started looking in the paper as to homes that were a little closer than St. Louis Hills.
Yes. Uh-huh. Did you know any of the people that you worked with that lived in the Bridgeton
No,
area?
No.
Because we have since interviewed several people, and it sounded like the Carrollton area was really full of McDonald people. I mean, it sounds like it. Did you find that out after
Yeah.
you moved in?
Yes, I knew some of them you would bump into, yes, and we became good friends and so forth.
Well, where did you move to then?
We moved to Magella on 11789, I think it was Magella.
And is Magella off of Natural Bridge?
Off of Natural Bridge. Magella is the street opposite the old City Hall.
Well, was the airport runway there by City Hall when you moved in?
No, the airport was 2 miles away.
So the airport did not extend out
No,
into Bridgeton at that time?
no, it was not. It
Was that City Hall building even there?
No, the City Hall building that I said the old one, really the old one was on Fifi.
Okay.
It's where the street department facility is
Or
located.
by the community center?
Yeah.
Well, how many children did you have then?
We had two, a boy and a girl.
And where did they go to school?
They attended Pattonville, and Linda ended up going to Southwest and then University of Notre Dame, and Jim went to St. Louis U for a while.
How old are they?
Daughter just turned 50, and my son's 47.
Do you remember the name of the grade schools they attended?
Pattonville School up here on Fifi. That's now the credit union.
So they attended a school called the Pattonville School.
Yes.
I see. Was it a grade school, kindergarten through?
Kindergarten through 6.
I see. Both of your children went
Yes. Then they went to Holman, and then they went to Pattonville.
there. I see. And they both graduated from Pattonville?
Yes.
Do
Was that
you,
on the Rock Road then, or Pattonville High School was still on the Rock Road when they graduated?
No, that
They
was a
moved down.
junior high. That was a Holman Junior High was.
So they went to
on
high
the
school
Rock
on the
Road.
bottoms.
They went under the bottoms.
well, let me ask you, what type of activities did your children do? And you were working at McDonald's, I suppose. Did you retire from McDonald's?
Yes, I did.
Was the name still McDonald?
It was McDonnell Aircraft, McDonnell Douglas Corporation.
And how long did you work for them?
About 39 years and about 8 or 9 months or something like that. Most of the time was, all but 3 or 4 years was at McDonnell Aircraft, and I did a tour in the corporate office. They took managers and rotated them up there for some kind of training or whatever, and then you would rotate back into usually a department head position.
Well, did you use your radio technology skills that you learned?
No, I my years at Mac I held various technical and supervisory and then management positions, and the radio part was the technical part as I got into that, but then I did some additional schooling and so forth, and progressed on it.
Did your wife work?
No, not. She was a home. Yes, she did. She was a homemaker.
Mm-hmm.
But when the kids were gone, she went out and went to work.
Well, tell us about while your children were growing up in Bridgeton. What was it like?
You didn't have quite the park systems you have today.
Okay.
Gentry Park was there. When they got a little older, the pool is, and both our kids worked up there as lifeguards.
Oh,
and so-
really?
Yes, and that was older. My wife was a Girl Scout leader, and I was a Boy Scout leader, so our kids were active in that. My son became an Eagle Scout, and my daughter, I think, earned just about every patch that a Girl Scout could make.
Uh-huh.
So,
And what, were the Boy Scouts affiliated through the school or a church?
it was church. It was Mezpah Church.
It was what?
Mezpah Church.
Oh.
And the troop subsequently went out of business when the grade school closed. That was where you got your boys coming into the scout troop. It was
I
from
see.
You have a cub pack, and that would feed the Boy Scout troop. And when the compact disappeared, you didn't have any boys' feet in the school, so the pack went out of existence. It was one of the oldest ones in Bridgeton.
So the church was like the sponsor
Yes,
for
yeah,
the...
that was part of their outreach program.
I see. Did you go to church there?
No, I did not.
Uh-huh.
I went to John Calvin.
Okay. When you were at John Calvin, where was John Calvin located?
It was located in Carrollton.
On Larchburg, I believe?
Yes, Larchburg, yes, yes. Now in the center of the runway, or at the end of the runway.
So, did your children attend John Calvin while they were growing
Yes,
up?
yes, they did. Yes, they did.
And what do you recall about John Calvin in those days while your children were growing up?
Oh, it was a very closely knitted, very family, very friendly group, very active. Christmas time they had progressive dinners where you went around to people's homes and things. It was a much community, very active thing. Today it's not quite that way because of the demographics. It's all we're all.
Are you still members of John Calvin?
Yes.
Which is located where?
It's down on Natural Bridge in the old
Circuit City.
Circuit City, yes.
So it had to relocate because of...
Because of the airport, and we lost a beautiful church, and many of the parishioners and were deeply in debt, and the church still isn't what it should be.
Do you remember?
Facility-wise.
So, when your children, as your children grew older, did you become active in the Bridgeton?
Oh, growing up,
politics?
I was active in my early days. I was on the design and review board when Ed Swan was mayor.
Were you appointed by him to be on this?
Yes, yes. And
Was he the first mayor of Bridgeton?
He was the first mayor as far as I was concerned. It might be. I don't know what their form of government was when he's the first one I remember. And it's the first picture. He's the first picture up if you go to City Hall and see all the pictures of the mayor. He's the.
Is he still living now?
Oh no, he passed away many years ago. Yeah, and I was active in the church. I was in the board of deacons and so forth. And,
Do you remember the pastor's name of the church?
Lindsay. Bob Lindsay.
Okay. I remember when Pastor Tony was there.
Yeah, Pastor Tony came later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pastor Tony was active in getting the ministry of Bridgeton Ministry here.
Oh, uh-huh.
Yeah, he was active, and he was one of them pushing to get that established here in Bridgeton. Yeah.
So we lost a lot as the airport decided to expand. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, there's not too much to say other than they demolished and they gutted the city, but hopefully it's starting to come back. We're on the upswing. The new city hall is certainly a plus.
Have you been through it?
Oh yes, I've been through it. Yeah.
And you're pleased with the way it is?
Yes, it's a fine facility. It's much better than the older facility. Yes.
Well, let me ask you. You moved to Magella, but you don't live on Magella presently.
No.
But you still live in Bridgeton.
Yes, we do.
And what is your address now?
12115 DePaul Hills Drive.
So when and why did you decide to move from Magella?
Well, we decided we were thinking about remodeling the house, and so we decided to look at new homes to get some ideas about remodeling. And our daughter was getting out of Notre Dame, and all those little minor expenses were disappearing. So looking at it, and one of the salesmen said, well, you know, you're never going to get your money out of remodeling. Your quantum growth is already past. So you should look at buying a new home. And financially that made a lot of sense. So we started looking at new homes, and we looked at Harmon Estates and here, and so he was a little difficult to deal with. And so
Who was?
The contractor over there.
At Harmon Estates?
Yeah, and so this was going on, so we had this house built.
This is a beautiful house. I know we don't have this on our camera right now, but it is a beautiful house. Are you happy here?
Yes, very much so.
Are you happy you stayed in Bridgeton?
Yes, yeah, Bridgeton's a good town.
Well, we'd like to know why you say that.
You probably have some of the best city services of any place in St. Louis County. You have an outstanding street department, and as board chairman of the police commission, you have an outstanding police force.
So this is what you are presently on,
Yeah.
is the what?
Police board.
And what are your duties on police board?
The police board is responsible for hiring and I guess firing the chief. We are final approval of hiring all police officers. We hear all complaints against the police department by citizens or police officers against the chief.
Has there been much internal trouble?
No.
That's good. That's good.
It's
How many would you say is on the Bridgeton Police Force?
commission.
No, the force. How many officers or
I should
personnel
know
would you
that
say?
I think it's 56, or no, it's 53 commissioned officers.
And do we have undercover detectives as well?
Yes, we do. One of our officers is with the DEA on loan, and when you make arrest, you can confiscate any property they own, and it goes to the organizations that the police organizations are, and our share for the one officer in this one group was $425,000.
Our share of what?
How much money came to us that we confiscated,
Wow.
property and so forth.
Legally.
Yeah. Well, if you look in Wall Street Journal, I can show you they're running an ad where they have pictured, I think in Rolla, I think they $560,000 they confiscated, and Fortell there was $200,000 they confiscated.
Could you define confiscated?
They arrested a drug person,
Oh.
and that was the money they had, and it's drug money.
Oh, I see
And
what you're
so
saying.
The law was they lose that. If they lose their car, they can lose their house, they can lose everything, and they can sell it off, and it goes to the government.
Oh,
And so it's then divided up among the agencies that are in that task force.
I see. I'm sorry, I really didn't understand all of that. How long have you been on the police commission?
Let's see. 3 years, I guess, 3 or 4 years.
And previously, were you on a different?
I was on the street department, street commission.
What kind of duties were those?
That was approving contracts of buying things. There was about extending a street, renaming some streets and things like that.
Did you have anything to do with naming or developing this area you live in of DePaul Hills? Did you have anything to do with it?
No, but you say, back when I was in the design and review board, we were talking about the master plan.
Yeah.
And they were laying out what to do, and we didn't want to be like further on down the St. Charles Rock Road where cars were coming in and out, pulling in at each store, and there was a big debate, and was involved, and I was all for this Paul Meyer Road over here, where you have controlled access onto the Rock Road. So that was laid out years and years ago, that if that land was developed, you'd have a controlled access at lights being able to go in and out instead of being able to pull in at each store. along the road.
Oh, okay.
See, if you go down St. Charles Rock Road, you can pull into each.
That's true.
Not
Now
here.
I know what you're talking about.
Not
Okay.
here. So and I was involved, and I was very pro. There was a big debate about that.
Well, you know, there was a big debate, was it last year or so, about Walmart coming in where it used to be the Grandpa Pigeon store on the Rock Road, and then recently the Value City, and now it will be in the very near future a Walmart here in Bridgeton. What did you feel about that? How do you feel about that?
Well, it's a no-brainer. The amount of money we receive from sales tax is, I believe, a little over $1 million, and we give St. Anne's 10% of it because after the Walmart where it was currently located was built, they decided to add a garden section, which was then going to be in St. Anne's, and there was a big potential lawsuit. So Bridgeton says, look, we'll just give you 10% of everything, and we'll forget the lawsuit. And so we ended up getting like $900 and some odd thousand a year sales tax from that Walmart, and that being as we have around a 20 some odd $1 million budget, that's a big share of our budget. So if you're not going to have Walmart, what's your plans on replacing that money? Or what services are you going to cut out? So it was really a no-brainer.
I see. Were you on other commissions then besides the street department, you said, and police department?
In the design and review.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I got a little away from that when the kids were, well, before I got away from it, I did some church things, and then I was very active in Boy Scouts and being a scoutmaster. That was a very time-consuming thing. And
Were your Boy Scouts active in the city of Bridgeton? Did they do any service projects here
Yes.
in Bridgeton?
Yes, we used to, we collected the newspapers at Rock Road and Fifi were all going around before it was in vogue to recycle.
Yeah.
And we did do that. And we did some minor service projects down by the quick shop down on Natural Bridge and a few things. So.
What do you remember about Fifi? Like you said, your children went to school at that Pattonville school on Fifi, and that is presently a credit union.
Yes.
But wasn't that before the credit union the community center? Was that the
No.
same building?
No.
Oh.
No, the community center was never there.
Oh,
That I
okay.
know of. Across the street from that, where the street department was, where the city hall was.
Okay. Will you tell us about that?
It was a rather old building, and
Was it a house-like structure?
it was pretty much of a house. Yes, it wasn't one. It wasn't very big, and
Nothing to write home about?
no, I mean it was. It wasn't too much bigger than this room here, as to holding.
What kind of business was conducted there?
Regular city hall meetings, and sometimes it was more interesting than watching TV. Some of the people in the city, Frank Zyken, one of them who built St. James and who was the trash hauler, was a very colorful gentleman, and he was usually at odds with the city of Bridgeton over some issue, and I think he wanted where Gentry Park was, or some land to redevelop, and we were a bunch of hicks, and he put some pigs up there.
Pigs? What do you mean he put pigs?
He literally, he said it's going to be some, I don't remember the details all, but he alluded that it was going to be like a pig farm. That's all. There were farmers, and he put a couple of pigs up there, and were close to the Gentry Park, where Gentry Park is now.
I think we talked to someone else that talked a little bit about this.
Somebody killed him when it came on. He was pretty livid when someone came around and killed his. Well, I don't know if they stole him, but they killed him.
Uh-oh. I see. Do you remember when they used to have the Gentry Fair up at the Gentry Park?
Yes, I don't remember much about it though.
It was kind of more like a country and old days type of crafts and
Yeah,
activities.
it was more a crafty type of thing, yeah. And a car show or something.
Do you remember, was the new community center built when your kids were still young enough to attend?
The pool was built, not the community center. That came on a little later.
Did your children have any other jobs besides lifeguards at the pool? Did they work at Northwest Plaza at all?
No. I think my son did a little, he worked at a gas station or something for a short time in the winter time of all times, but that was it.
But the pool that you refer to is this exact same pool as the present indoor pool?
The pool, this is the second pool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the previous pool was.
I know the present one was active in the early '80s. That's as far as I go back with that.
Yeah.
When did that change over?
No, this pool is only about 4 years old.
The aquatic center.
No,
was-
the indoor pool.
Oh, I
Oh.
don't remember when that.
Oh, okay. Well, so there was another outdoor pool before.
Yeah, it was the outdoor pool was before the
Okay.
indoor pool.
I understand.
Yeah.
So the indoor pool and the community center was all built at the same time.
I think so.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us? Any incidents about Bridgeton you can remember, such as? Now, well, let me ask you something. I notice when I drive by sometimes, if I cut through on Harmony Lane and I go up through Avery to get to the community center, there is one very big house. Do you know anything about that? It's a very big house on a lot of land.
Up here?
Yeah.
That house, I believe, I don't know her name or his name, but the gentleman on the south side that runs that does a little farming and so forth, that's his daughter.
Oh,
And I think they owned a swimming pool company or something.
oh,
And I don't know, this is hearsay, that he gave her the land and they built that home there on that property. And,
I was always wondering about that.
yeah, so,
Well, recently in Bridgeton in April on Good Friday evening, we did have a tornado come through.
yes, we did.
And that came through in the very area that you were considering moving into, Harmon Estates.
Yes. It came right by here when we heard it.
Oh, really?
Yes, and as they say, it's like a train. Well, if you remove the metallic clackety-clack of the wheels, you know it's wind, but it sounds like a train. And I turned to my wife, we were down here, I said, do you hear that? She says, hear what? And it just came up this way and was gone within 20 or 30 seconds. And we didn't have that much wind, we didn't have that much rain or anything. And then less than a mile here, some of the homes are totally destroyed.
And many more in Harmon Estates.
Yes.
So at that point, did you feel like, glad we didn't move in
I
there
didn't-
after all?
No, it really didn't settle in until we started watching it, TV, and I might say that our emergency in Bridgeton, when there's an emergency, things like that, the first responders take command. In this case, the chief of police, and Chief Hood did an outstanding job.
What did he do?
Within a matter of minutes, he authorized the Code 1000, which requested assistance from outside. The communication command center was established in the multi-purpose room within minutes.
Of the community center?
No, in City Hall.
Oh, okay, I
in
see.
City Hall, and
Mhm.
they had the Cleve Gas and the electric company, and I think the fire department functioned out of there, issuing orders to crews that night.
Were you involved in
No,
that?
I was not. I was not.
But the next day,
No, I
you stayed away?
No, that is purely the professional police department, and I had nothing to do with it.
Okay, but you
I
know all this happened.
I know all about what took place. I've seen everything that what transpired, and they put out a call to the street department. Police cruisers don't carry chainsaws, and there were trees and everything down on the roads. So the street department showed up, and the building was pretty badly damaged. Both street sweepers were damaged, but they got 18 chainsaws and 2 bobcats and some other stuff, and they started clearing the streets. Police department was turning off gas over there in Harmony Estates.
So they
Tremendous job.
were on the
First
spot?
responders in the city of Bridgeton were outstanding.
That's wonderful. That's good to hear, and I hope we always have it that way.
And what's becoming of all of this vegetation that was removed?
What is going, Conrad, the mayor, received a call from the mayor in Sunset Hills that had a tornado just prior to this, and he told him about Service International. It's a church, I think it was Kurt Warner is the church he went to, and it's their service. And he contacted him, we partnered with him, and one time we had 1,000 people in here. And he established that to get that going. So that was a significant thing. The city cannot go on your property and remove branches, because you would be spending taxpayers' money going on cleaning up a private person's facility. But if you can get it to the street, then we'll take care of it. So Service International cut it up and brought it to the street,
I see.
and we hauled it away, and we bridged it. And they got these big dumpsters and to throw the building materials in, and all the trees and so forth, they hauled away, and they hauled it to part of the buyout land over in Carrollton. And they've contracted with a grinder, and the grinder will take tree stumps this big and just chew them right up. And they haven't started yet, but once they get it all over there, they're going to grind it up and either sell it or move it out. They're quite concerned. They don't want to fire it. Well, if that catches, starts burning, you're not going to put it out. So we're very concerned. So they're trying to get it all over there and ground up, and they moved out. And Bridgeton, according to the newspaper, we're ahead of all the other communities in the St. Louis County as far as cleanups go.
That's wonderful. Has there been such a major natural disaster that you can remember living here in Bridgeton while you were here?
We've had other tornadoes, but not so much further, a little away. And other than, we had the flooding here about 5 years ago, where we dealt with FEMA, I think down in one of the areas, I can't recall what the bottom. I know Tom Hahn, the city administrator, has great experience dealing with FEMA.
I didn't know that we had a problem with flooding. Well, I shouldn't say that.
There was some water, some came in. I don't know all the details on where it was, but.
Were you in Bridgeton, and were you active in Bridgeton politics when Earth City started to be developed?
I wouldn't say I was active. I was cognizant of what was going on. But,
Did you think that was a good idea to develop the Earth City area when that used to flood?
No, using that bottom land as development, I never thought was the greatest thing. But that was Ford Motor Company that was doing that. They're the ones that started that. They eventually sold that off. That was a big, my understanding.
And we have the Rams practice facility right there in Earth City, which gets crowded from time to time when they offer a public, viewing or something. What happened? Why didn't Bridgeton annex that area? Did they have an opportunity?
I think they tried, but it was one of these things, when you annex something, both areas have to agree upon it, and there was no one living there in our city.
Yeah.
And so I think they had a couple of people move in a trailer and voted no, or something. There was a lot of money involved, and it was, I think we tried, but it never, I don't remember the details. But,
Have you been around long enough to remember the story of the village of Champ?
Ed Banker?
No, Bill Brink.
Bill
Bankert.
Bill Bankert, yeah. I vaguely remember it, yeah. But I can't.
Yeah, he had a completely different vision.
Yeah. At one time they were talking about putting the Rams football stadium out there too. So.
Is there anything you would like to see Bridgeton have? Any business or activity that we don't have, do you think would be wonderful if we could have it here?
No, I think Bridgeton needs to recoup from the airport. They need to go back out and develop more industry, develop more commercial. We have empty spaces here. With the population and so forth gone, left this area, we have a difficult time in lining up businesses to be successful. We lost a number of restaurants and businesses that left because of that. I think that's the big thing we need to do is we've got it's a well-kept secret. We just got to go back and take a good, effective organization and management to bring it around.
Well, they're talking about this China hub. Do you think that'll come to pass?
That may, but I'm not sure. The devil's always in the details, and what does that mean? And there's not going to be a lot of jobs if 3 or 4 airplanes come in here a month and offload. And if something bigger comes in, from what I understand, the Chinese are talking of having their own people here, and because of communications, and they would almost set up a compound or apartment complex, like take over Northwest Plaza and rebuild it. And so, as far as jobs are concerned, I'm not sure what it would do for the local people here. So, in all things, there's a lot of money involved, but who's going to be getting the money and who's going to get the benefits of it? I don't know. It's everything. It's difficult to be pro or against something when what they want to do is still in the embryo stages of conceptual development.
Well, were you living here or on Magella when Northwest Plaza was just being built?
Yes.
At that time, that was quite a big thing, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. At that one time, that was the largest shopping center in the United States.
And did you feel that it was a shame that Bridgeton didn't have more of a piece of Northwest Plaza? It just really owns a little strip?
Yes, that was an unfortunate thing, the way that worked out, but that's, at this point, it's just as well.
Now, at this point, yes, and this is what I think is interesting, is we've kind of gone around in a circle. So right now, what's going on at Northwest Plaza?
It's hard to say. I think the large shopping centers are a passé thing, at least in the next decade. And so I think that land's way more valuable for something other than shopping. But what is it? Being as the airport has expanded, people have moved out, and I don't know, you're going to have to, it's beyond my pay grade to figure out what to do with it. But look at Mills, that's never done real well over there. So I don't think shopping center is going to be going
We actually have about 10 minutes
Okay.
left on our.
Is there any anything, looking back, closing your eyes, that you would like to tell people that might be looking at this CD years from now about Bridgeton experiences maybe that you have, or things you can remember, maybe what it was like when your children were young? And
Well, it was a good place to raise a family, and I guess it still is. I guess some of the things of bringing my kids up, the active and the scouts and the active church, the demographics has changed. It's an older community. It's not the same community as they were all young families that were developing that. It was a good place to bring them up. But Bridgeton's got some fabulous services. No, it's, actually my kids turned out well.
and do any of them live in Bridgeton?
No, my son lives in Baldwin. He works at Boeing.
He works for Boeing,
Yes,
which was
which was with McDonnell Aircraft, McDonnell Douglas. And my daughter is in business. She's a publisher of St. Louis Bride and Groom magazine, and she produces the wedding shows at the convention center down in the city of St. Louis. It's the largest wedding shows in the Midwest.
Well, that sounds like quite a hectic thing.
Yeah, so.
And do you have grandchildren, did you say?
Yes, I have two. My daughter has a boy, and my son has a girl.
Uh-huh.
And Colin Joseph Hennessy is been accepted. He's starting at Auburn University and received a $20,000 scholarship, $5,000 a year academic, and he's going to study industrial design. He's going out for the band, and he's going to go out for lacrosse.
Wow, that's going to be busy.
And my granddaughter is a cheerleader
Where?
in Winsville.
Oh, in high school.
Yes, she's a senior.
Uh-huh. Well, how far is Wentzville from here?
20 miles.
But it's easy to get on the highway, isn't
Seton, right out there, yeah. Other than 5 o'clock.
it? My daughter lives in Arnold, and even though it's about 30 miles away, it's still easy to get on the highway. And I think that's one thing, we have nice access to the major highways. And it's funny, even though we've had this kind of tug and war with the airport, it still helps out when you need it, when you want to go somewhere. Yeah. I talked to a lady this morning in my yoga class at the Bridgeton Community Center who is going to be visiting her parents in Oklahoma. And she said it will be 3 hours drive from her parents' home to the airport. So I think we forget actually how easy and spoiled we are to be 10 minutes max from this airport.
and when I was in the corporate office, I did a lot of traveling, and I can't imagine going 3 hours to go to the airport. Those security wasn't what it is today.
Are you glad you're not traveling like that anymore?
Yes, I can't imagine. I remember getting up and catching a 6 o'clock flight out of here, going to Long Beach, and I had an 11 o'clock meeting in Long Beach.
And were you back here in the same day?
No. I came back 2 days later or something.
Is that where it was originally from, McDonald, from?
Douglas.
Yes.
Douglas Aircraft was at Long Beach.
Okay.
Yeah. Instead of flying into LAX, we flew. You could fly into Long Beach. And, that was convenient. It was TWA at the time.
Is there anything else you'd like to say about your church as far as the future of John Calvin Presbyterian?
It's going to be interesting with the. There is a little land here for new homes that could be developed in Bridgeton, and the demographics, it's gonna be interesting how the church survives.
Well, there's several Presbyterian churches in Bridgeton now, aren't there?
There's two that I know of, Mesbah and John Calvin.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed that John Calvin has tried to bring, or let, I should say, share with other groups, such as I see signs about Weight Watchers meetings there.
Oh, yes, in AAA, and when we moved into Circuit City, we had some money, and we took $500,000 and was either build the sanctuary or build the classrooms and support facilities, and they allowed to do that, the small kitchen and new restrooms and new meeting rooms and so forth, because this is how you're going to grow the church. So we didn't put the money in the sanctuary. That is still to be built, and it would go out in that loading dock, and there would be a steeple on there. It'd be very nice, but the money is not there. The money is there, and having a hard, like all churches are.
Did many people follow over to the new building?
Yes, it's surprising. The church used to be primarily all Bridgeton, and now it's Bridgeton is minority members in there. They still from St.
When
Charles,
you're half a block
Hazelwood.
off an interstate highway, that's what happens.
Hazelwood, or some people live in South County are still driving out here. And,
Well, maybe with the church being so tightly in the community, maybe, it didn't present itself for other people maybe to come in or something like that.
it's a hard way to go. It's difficult, the outreach to get people to change, and they want to go where the kids are. And there's not, it's a catch-22. If the kids aren't there, you're not going to bring the kids in. And it's a small group. We've got a small youth group, and it's quite active. They go on a number of outing trips, and so what is there is doing a good job. It's just there's not enough numbers.
We noticed also they've had a farmer's market the past couple of summers. Will they continue with that?
Now that just wasn't enough to pay off. And,
Okay.
And we don't have the refrigeration to keep over if we didn't sell it, so apparently they're not going to do that.
Okay, I see.
So that's pretty much that.
Well, we've had a couple of new churches come into Bridgeton,
Yes.
and we wish them well, and time will tell how their congregations do. And we thank you for letting us come
Well,
today.
Thank you for asking me.
And,
I don't know how informative it is, but
There's something to be learned from everyone, and everyone we talk to tells us just maybe a little bit more pieces of this puzzle of Bridgeton's past, and hopefully the people of the Bridgeton's future will enjoy and maybe learn something. And we appreciate the pictures. I think Joe will take them home and scan them, and we'll return them to you. And now maybe we'll just take some pictures
okay.
if we can. Turn that up. Is your wife home now?
I
Did
think
you
I
hear?
heard. I think I heard her do something.
Maybe we'll try to
Yeah.
take a picture of you and her together.
Okay.